Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Healthy Living Podcast, brought to you by Willow Creek Springs. This is a podcast where we talk about everything that has to do with healthy living, problems, solutions, experts, people going through every kind of issue whatsoever. Hey, let's get together, let's work together and create a world where healthy living is easier. I am here today for the first time with Ann Johnson. Ann, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Good, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. All right, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ditch my background. The problem with these backgrounds are that they make you seem not real, and you come and go out of the field of vision. So you get my boring office door behind me, but at least it's the real deal. So and we just met not too long ago, and you've been connected to part of my Willow Creek Springs team, and I just, you had posted something that I was kind of touched by, and I says, man, we should talk. And turns out you're involved in some of the events that Troy and Heather are involved with, and turns out you're part of this healthy living community already. And so I said, wow, what a perfect fit it would be. So why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit?
Well, as Joe said, my name is Ann Johnson. I live in the beautiful state of Idaho, southern Idaho. And yeah, I met Troy and Heather last year at our annual Western Days, which was just a year ago this last weekend. And my daughter had some anxiety, so I met Troy and Heather and got some anxiety spray, and the rest is pretty much history. I'm a total believer.
Well, it's interesting because there's a couple of points that obviously this show is about healthy living. And I think that some of the contributing factors to disrupt that healthy living are anxiety and sleep. I mean, we talk about diet and exercise and all of those things as well, but we were just talking this more a few minutes ago about the stress of life, and everywhere we go and whatever we do, I'm sorry, it's not easy. There's nothing easy about this life. And
Nope.
the older I get, the more I realize that the second you stop pushing, everything starts crumbling back on you. And well, I don't know, there was some Greek hero that was cursed with having to roll the rock up the hill, and every time he'd get almost to the top, it'd come crashing back down again. And it almost seems like all of us suffer that in the sense of, if you let things slide, you might be okay for a while, but generally speaking, the universe descends into chaos rather than comes into something really nice. And especially when you've got responsibilities, loved ones to take care of, and that sort of thing.
Right.
They never seem to run themselves very well.
Right.
So that all being said, and sleep, of course, is the other counterpoint to that. Sleep's the time when you heal yourself, and when you get anxiety, generally you don't sleep too well. So it's this constant battle to calm yourself while you're dealing with these stresses of life. So tell me about your background. Apparently you've got a medical background, and you're coming at this from a scientific point of view.
Yeah. So well, prior to 2006, I was a cocktail waitress in Jackpot, Nevada for 7 years. And I just got tired of living that life where you had no weekends, no holidays, it's just not a family job. And so in 2006, I started working for our local healthcare system in the billing department. And I did that, for 4 or 5 years. And then I decided, well, I was 26, and every time I'd go in and get my blood drawn, I would like freak out because they had to poke me like so many times to get my blood. Like I would start crying before I even got my blood drawn. And I'm like, this
Oh,
is
man.
ridiculous. I'm 26. There has to be some technique to it. And
Right.
so I took a phlebotomy class and I learned the techniques. And I wish all phlebotomists could learn how to, and nurses, oh my gosh, trying to just, trying to get an IV, like there's a technique. And so I learned that, but got a little bored of that. Went to work for a surgery center, and that's where I started learning how to code medical charts. So I also did like CNA stuff. So when I was at the surgery center, I helped front office, back office. I drew blood. I did CNA stuff. I worked in the surgery center suites, helping clean up after surgeries. Like I ran circles in
So
the
what does
surgery
that mean,
center.
coding charts? That I'm not so familiar with that term.
So when a patient goes into the hospital or the doctor's office or has a surgery, the medical coders are just there to make sure that the providers have entered the correct diagnosis and the correct procedure codes. So that way the patient gets a fair bill and the doctor gets paid for the work that he's done.
Got it. So it's about the finances and the bookkeeping of it all.
Right. So
Got it.
I've been medical coding since 2015, and I have 4 medical coding certifications. So, and I've been working from home since 2019, well before the pandemic hit. So I do have the medical experience and see lots of medical charts. And so for me, the CPD was a big, huge, like I've heard, just, I don't know, just I wasn't prepared for that, but I was like, well, you know what? I don't want her on, typical prescription drugs. There has to be something else. And so at that point, when I met Heather and Troy last year, I was just like, let's give it a shot and see what happens.
So a lot of the topics that we talk about this are all over the place. And we have all different types of guests, and sometimes we talk about Willow Creek Springs and our company and our products and things like that, but it's not so much a major topic of this show. So the point is, well, Troy was on as a guest a few weeks back, and he talked about where he came from, how him and I started working together. I mean, I've known Troy since we were kids. We used to go duck hunting together as out of high school, and they started working with our company 4 or 5 years ago. But I think the thing that is important is, like, your daughter, without getting as specific as you want, what is her situation?
Well, I think most of the majority of it started, a little bit before the pandemic. Well, right around the pandemic, when the schools got shut down and kids got sent home, and then with all the garbage that's going on in the public school system, like we just chose not to send her back, and so we started doing online school for her, and I think that created a lot of, like, I miss my friends, anxiety issues,
Okay.
yeah. So I think that's where it all started, because she really didn't have any before then.
So this is a real recent, in the last couple of years.
Oh yeah.
Situation. Okay, interesting. And so it seems like it was very much environmentally caused. Like sometimes anxieties, or whatever you want to call them, traumas, disorders, syndromes, whatever we want to call them, situations where we become obstructed by these situations. Sometimes they're chemical, sometimes they're diet, sometimes they're environmental. There's all different reasons for this. So this one seems it's very situational or environmental. And then so she's starting to become anxious, and how did that manifest itself?
So when we would go places like in public, she didn't want to go to town. Like even if she hasn't been to town in like a couple of weeks, like she just wanted to like basically hide in her bedroom.
Oh,
Um,
so instead of, so it's interesting. So it's almost like the social network, the social interaction of real life, as opposed to the social network online, sort of gave her a strength that when she wasn't using it, she kind of lost it.
right.
And then became, I don't know what they call that, agoraphobic or whatever, where it just didn't want to be around people in real life anymore.
Yeah, and me coding so many medical charts and seeing all these different encounters that come across, like it's super common. Like in trying to get these kids into counseling is almost impossible. Because all these counselors and social workers, therapists, like they're jam-packed. It's
Wow,
impossible to
I
see
guess I'm
one.
in the wrong business.
I know, right? So yeah, so last year, like I took her to the first day of Western Days with me, and she wouldn't even leave the tent to go pee, which was like, I don't know, 300 feet. Like she wouldn't
Wow.
even go use the bathroom. Like I pretty much had to like take her. She wouldn't go get any kind of like a food or drink or anything. Um, she just, she wouldn't. It was like she was scared. And it's like, well, nobody's gonna get you. You're a big tall girl, and I'm pretty sure nobody's gonna kidnap you.
Yeah,
But she
Idaho is
just,
a fairly safe place compared to California.
oh yeah, yeah. So that's when I was like, okay, this is baloney, and we're gonna try this. And sure enough, the next day she was like, I'd given her the AOK anxiety spray.
Uh-huh.
And so we left here probably like, I don't know, pretty early, but then I gave her the anxiety spray probably like 7:30, and the parade started at 10. So she had to go out there like at 9:15 and get a chair so she could watch the parade. And she took her chair out there all by herself. She sat, or she stood and watched the parade, and half the time I couldn't even see her. And I know for a fact,
Wow.
if she hadn't had that spray, like she would have sat in the tent the whole day with me. Like she wouldn't have gone and done that. So that was amazing.
Well, and the thing is, I guess we could talk about that just for a bit, because that's one of my proudest formulas, because it works so well for so many people. And the key of it, it's funny because you talk about CBD as the active ingredient, but the truth is the formula works without CBD.
Oh,
And yeah, so the CBD is like what we call, it's a catalyst in this situation. It helps by itself with anxiety. So some people could take some straight CBD oil and get anxiety relief just from that. So it has its own value specifically for relieving anxiety. But the blend of the herbs that are in that formula also work even without the CBD. I have a client that's in another country that they can't use CBD there. I can't export it to this country, and they love the formula, but they can't have CBD in it. So we're
sure.
testing it over there right now, and so far the results are good. That without CBD, it still is
Oh,
effective.
well.
What happens is the CBD, it does two things. One, it helps to relieve anxiety, and it's primarily an anti-inflammatory. So when you think about anxiety, everything in your body gives you an inflammation response, right? Every single problem, that's your body's answer to
Right.
everything, right? Whether it's nerve endings flaring up, whether it's fluid going to a wound or an injury, whether it's, that's what our bodies do. Anything goes wrong, boom, inflame. And so that's the magic of CBD, is it's such a wonderful anti-inflammatory. It both benefits your body's natural anti-inflammatory system, and it suppresses your body's natural inflammatory system at the same time. So it's quieting down the part of your body that's going, inflame it, and it's also
Right.
improving the part that says settle it down. So both of those things are happening at the same time. But the kind of the magic thing that I discovered about CBD by itself is that it helps other things work better. And so there are a lot of natural ingredients that have that sort of effect, like cayenne pepper is a catalyst. And so sometimes we put a little cayenne pepper into a formula, not because you want it to get hot, but because it just makes everything work faster, makes it work better. For many years ago, I was a painter, and sometimes we worked with special paints that had two parts to it, and they had a resin and they had a catalyst, and that resin was the body of the paint. That was the thing that made it thick, but that catalyst, without it, it would never dry.
Sure.
And you put that catalyst in it, and boom, it gets hot. Next thing you know, it does its thing. So there are compounds that act in that way as well. And so it just turns out that CBD is really effective. So, you know, my wife and I have been making these herbal compounds for 30 years, more than that. And before we knew about CBD, we were using, you know, hemp seed oil as an ingredient, and we found it to be a really great carrier oil. But and I was using other cannabinoids coming from California, as you might imagine, to great success. But you know, obviously that was a jagged market that, you know, you can't bring that to the Western Days show. And but once we figured out that we could isolate the CBD, we started studying it, we came to figure out that this was the case. And of course, you know, you study, you try it out. I'm always the first one to try my own formulas, because I figure, well, if it works for me, maybe it'll work for you. If it doesn't work for me, it might work for you anyways, but at least I'll be the first one to find out if it, you know, tastes horrible or has some kind of a negative side effect. Now, your experience with, you know, modern medicine, and even if it's primarily in the charting side of things, you're also, you know, in dealing with nursing and blood drawing and that sort of thing, you're very aware of medical processes, right?
Yes.
And so, you know, I think where we're coming from as a company and the types of things that we make, one of the most important things that I look at is safety, because I look at things like FDA, like I have to put an FDA disclaimer in everything I make that says this is.
Oh, I think you lost your sound.
I accidentally muted myself there. I am not a medical professional. I cannot give medical advice. You know,
Right.
all of these things are I have to be very adamant about that, so nobody construes this as, well, he said, and I did this thing, and so therefore, you know, but the reality is, you look at every single medicine that FDA approves, you look at every procedure that a doctor performs, you look at every test, every tool, every procedure of any kind, and there's somebody that died from it, or at least got really sick or hurt. And to me, that's the part that's not okay. Like, I understand there's some kind of acceptable risks that people take in a dramatic situation. Like, let's see, you've got a tumor, and if we don't do anything for it, we know what's going to happen. So if you want to take a chance and do this risky procedure, you'll have a chance at living. What do you want to do? But that's not how they treat it, is it?
Don't even get me started on the jabbity jab that
yes. I know.
Most Americans were forced to get, or they heard it on the news, so they darn well better go get it. It's like, why do you get your advice from the news? Like,
I couldn't agree more. Guess who doesn't have a job?
Yeah, me either.
Good for you. And guess who never got sick?
Yeah, well, I did twice, but I'd rather take my chances and get sick than take my chances of all the nasty side effects and deaths
Agreed.
that have occurred since that. But
My
that's a
wife
whole
got it
nother
twice
show.
too. And she survived it and she didn't get the shot and she's glad she didn't get the shot. And
Yeah.
you know, the point is, I know when just sliding down that rabbit hole just for a second, because I have yet to talk about this on my podcast. So you get to break the ice on this. I've been wanting to, but I'm not the one leading the charge. I let everybody else open the doors. But I know dozens of people that have had negative side effects directly connected to that vaccine, one of them, including one person who is immunocompromised, two people, one that has lupus and has suffered dramatically and has gone in the hospital twice. The second one has an immunodeficiency disease, and she's now got heart problems that she didn't have before. And one guy died 2 days out or a day after he took the shot, and now he's not here to talk about it.
Oh yeah, I know many people. My father-in-law, he's a long haul truck driver, and there were a couple of his friends that died just within days of having it. And so I code a lot of family medicine and internal medicine and EKGs, and you would not believe the thousands of EKGs that we had sitting in our work queue. And I'd say 70% of them or more. And I'm not like writing these numbers down,
Right. You're just
in my
noticing.
head,
Right.
in my head, 70% or more of these people getting all these EKGs and coming in to the ED or the cardiologist or just the family med providers. 70% of them have had the hokey pokey. So
Right.
I don't know, let's start putting two and two together, folks.
I couldn't agree more. It just drives me crazy. You know, the part that really got me, was the social controls that they were pushing. You know, this was a social agenda that the people in power took horrible advantage of. And then also I always say, well, let's follow the money, you know, and what happened again? Oh yeah, a couple of companies made billions and everybody else paid for it and suffered. And, you know, here our government just barely passed a budget again. How much did we spend on all of that stuff? You know, we don't even want to get into it, you know, maybe we could have saved a buck or two. Yeah, well, and I think that's what this conversation is all about, though. It's about regular people and their regular experiences about issues that affect all of us. And, you know, sometimes it's going after creating a natural formula that most importantly is safe. And I can say with certainty, if somebody had ever gotten sick from one of my formulas, I'd have heard about it. Like, that's the first thing that happens, right? Anything goes wrong. And I've had a couple people try to claim things, and I was like, okay, wait a minute. So you're saying you got diarrhea after you took this thing. What else did you do? Oh, well, I was drinking last night, and you know, there's always this other thing that was happening that nobody bothered to, but I took your thing and I got this, so therefore.
Yeah. Or I went to Wendy's and had fast food and magically you have diarrhea. Wow.
Exactly. That old Del Taco burrito got me again. Gosh dang it, you know?
Right.
So, you know, I think that that's one of the things that's really important in this whole healthy living conversation is, you know, risk assessment, harm reduction. You know, doctors claim they take an oath to harm no one, right? That's right there in that. My dad was a surgeon. I know this stuff. And my dad was a good surgeon. He was actually a world-renowned surgeon. But you know what? He's dead now. You know why? Because
doctors don't lie.
Well, he didn't take care of himself. He had diabetes, he was overweight, had heart disease, and all completely avoidable things, you know, and now he's not here. And I think to myself, man, you know, what if we applied the things we learned? What if we applied, like, not what you learned in medical school, because frankly, medical school was written by the pharma companies. And I'm not saying it's all bad. I'm just saying,
right.
If I'm a pharma company and I'm writing a a curriculum for physicians, maybe it's going to be a little heavy on the drugs. I mean, just maybe, right? I'm just saying, I mean, and again, let the chips fall where they may. We
Right.
look at go to a doctor, what's going to happen? You're going to get a prescription. You're never going to go to a doctor and not get a prescription. I've never seen it happen. You go to a doctor, you're going to walk out of there with at least some samples of some drug in your hand. And I guarantee you, every single drug that you get in your hand, put in there by a doctor who said he was going to harm no one, there's at least one person that's gotten sick or died from that.
Oh, yeah.
So how the hell? I mean, that's what I want to know. What's really cool though? There's a type of doctor called an osteopath. And my very first guest on this podcast is an osteopath. And she was telling me about the way she trained and the way she studied. And they use holistic devices and techniques and modalities, as well as Western medicine, allopathic, treatments. And they can use surgery, they can do all these things. And to me, it seems like really such a good balanced approach, but you don't ever see osteopaths anywhere.
Well, so several of my providers that I code for in family medicine are osteopath medicine doctors. And honestly, they do more prescription drug management than anything. And they were one of the biggest pushers of the hokey pokey. So
you're kidding me.
I don't know. Well, and I think it's the health system that they worked for. So I'm pretty sure that they were told that they had to push that.
Probably.
And I know that they're starting to see all the, the side effects and stuff from that. So
you don't hear a whole lot anymore now, do you?
I haven't heard them pushing it much anymore, but our radio commercials are still telling you to go get it.
Right.
It's just like, shut that off. The pandemic's over.
Exactly. Well, listen, Ann, I knew this was going to happen. I really enjoyed talking to you. We're out of time. And this is what happens. So I'd love to have you come back. I think we barely scratched the surface of our conversation. Hopefully you're having the same kind of experience I am. I just like talking to people that share something in common, and we can share some experiences. I don't know, is there anything that you're promoting and you want to let people know about? I know you're running the Western Days there in Idaho. We have getting quite a following out there.
Well, it was, so I do what's a brand called Dusty Roads, and they're an all real nail polish strip. And they're all Western styles. And then they also do like ball caps and hats and coats and wild drags and all kinds of fun stuff, but they usually have a matching pedicure or manicure. So yeah, that's kind of my sideshow. It's my getaway from the house and have a social life since I code from home. That's my social life.
Fantastic. How does somebody get a hold of you if they want to learn more about that?
So they can go to my Facebook group. It's called Gold Buckle Nail Bar and Boutique, or give me a call at 208-490-2306.
Well, thank you so much, Ann, for joining me. Hopefully we can get you back on soon and continue this conversation. Ann Johnson, folks, this is Joe Grumbine with the Healthy Living Podcast. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Joe. Bye.